Assalamu alaikum. As I've been introduced, my name is Lubna Chaudhry, and I'm excited to be presenting today on the topic of rapid shelter solutions for post-disaster recovery. This work is deeply inspired by the need to serve humanity with dignity and innovation in times of crisis. So as you can see on the screen in Surah Al-Baqarah, we are told by God that, "And we will try you with something of fear and hunger and loss of wealth, lives, and fruit, but give glad tidings to the patient." Disasters test entire communities, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. But as Muslims, we know that these trials are part of life and that we should respond with compassion and action. At the end of 2024, around 83.4 million people were internally displaced worldwide, by far the highest number in history. Disaster-related displacement has also been rising globally, with 45.8 million such movements in 2024. And conflict-driven displacement is making up 90% of all internal displacement, mostly in regions like the Sudan, Gaza, and the DR Congo. And in 2024, the Americas experienced a record 14.5 million internal displacements due to disasters, the highest on record. The US alone reported 11 million disaster-related displacements, marking the most ever recorded in a single country. And the chart on the screen shows displacement data from 2008 to 2024, and you can see the stark increase. And most US displacements were preemptive evacuations, moving people out of harm's way before disasters hit. But the sheer scale shows how climate and weather-related events are increasingly disrupting communities. While displacements in the US are often temporary and tied to evacuation systems, the growing scale compared to global data underscores the need for better preparedness, rapid shelter systems, and integration of climate resiliency into housing policy. So what is rapid shelter? When we talk about rapid shelter, we're not just talking about putting up tents. We're talking about emergency or transitional housing that can be quickly deployed, easily transported, and assembled in a matter of hours to days. These shelters are designed to respond to the immediate needs of the people who have lost everything after earthquakes, floods, wildfires, or conflict. They should be portable, climate resilient, and often modular, meaning they can expand or evolve into more permanent housing as needed. But beyond structure and speed, what makes rapid shelter so important is that it should protect dignity as well. Shelter solutions vary based on geography, resources, and cultural context. But the shared goal is, again, to quickly establish secure, habitable spaces for affected individuals and families. If we look at the international context, the three most common solutions include the UNHCR, which is United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, tent and shelter kits. These are standardized, easy to transport, and by far the most common solution, provided by the UN for refugees and disaster victims. They're usually accompanied by basic shelter kits, which include plastic sheeting, rope, and tools for quick assembly, and they are intended for short-term use, but often remain in place for months or years in protracted crises. There's also prefabricated modular shelters, also called refugee housing units. These are more durable than tents with rigid frames, insulated panels, and lockable doors. These are designed to last a little bit longer, so 3 years, offering improved protection and dignity. They're mainly used in refugee camps in Jordan, Ethiopia, Bangladesh, among others. And finally, locally sourced or culturally appropriate structures utilize local materials like bamboo, timber, or mud bricks, and traditional building techniques. These are often more accepted by displaced communities and suited to the climate. They promote local livelihoods and can be quicker to deploy if and only if materials are available. Alternatively, in the United States, rapid shelter responses often support communities impacted by hurricanes, wildfires, and housing crises. Some common solutions include FEMA trailers and modular housing units. These are usually deployed after major disasters like hurricanes, floods, and wildfires. They provide temporary but private housing with basic amenities, but oftentimes are criticized for slow deployment and at times lack of long-term sustainability. And again, in these times, these are all heightened with funding cuts to organizations like FEMA. There's also emergency congregate shelters, and these are quick to set up using existing infrastructure like schools, churches, and arenas. They offer mass shelter with shared sleeping spaces and basic services, but because of this, they lack privacy and can be overcrowded. And finally, there's tiny home communities and pallet shelters. So this is an emerging solution for homelessness and disaster displacement. They're small, rapidly deployable structures offering privacy and security, and they're often paired with supportive services and designed as transitional housing. So when we think about rapid shelter after disaster, maybe your first thought would have been the tent, but the solution isn't just to deliver those tents quickly, and the reality is much more complex. And with that complexity, there are a lot of challenges. Many disaster zones are hard to reach. Roads may be destroyed or communities are isolated. Secondly, speed is everything. There's often delays, and these delays, even of a few days, can cost lives. Then there's the issue of one size fits all. Too often, shelters are designed without thinking about the local culture or family needs in mind, and many are not built to withstand the very disasters they're meant to respond to, like floods, fires, or heat. We also see cultural insights like lack of privacy for women, no space for family gatherings or prayer, and finally, funding and coordination challenges often delay delivery or lead to inequities in who gets help first. So I want to go back to the Holy Quran. As you can see on the screen, this verse begins by stating that Allah has made homes a place of rest and tranquility for people. This highlights the importance of a stable and comfortable dwelling And this verse also mentions that Allah provided dwellings from the hides of cattle, which are light and easy to carry during travel and at the time of settling. These tents made from animal hides were essential for nomadic life and provided shelter in various environments. What can we learn from this, and is there a connection to design principles being studied today? I would argue yes. This verse is a timeless reminder of how homes are meant to comfort us, and that even portable shelters, light, adaptable, and restful, are part of a divine design that meets human need and with dignity and ease. So some of these design principles you can see on the screen. As I've mentioned before in the presentation, they should be fast and easy to deploy, climate resilient, culturally appropriate, modular and adaptable. They should be off-grid ready and have some type of community involvement. And I'll go into some of these in a little bit more detail. First, looking at climate resiliency and energy efficient design. As climate change accelerates, the shelters we build must withstand stronger storms, higher temperatures, and unpredictable weather patterns. Climate resilient shelters are designed to endure, whether it's high winds in the Caribbean or heat waves in the Sahel. These designs go hand in hand with energy efficiency using solar power, reflective roofing, passive insulation, and even water collection systems to minimize dependency on fragile and oftentimes destroyed communities. These features not only protect lives, but also protect the planet, aligning disaster response with environmental stewardship. Secondly, foldable shelter. One of the biggest logistical challenges in disaster zones is getting materials where they're needed fast. These shelters can be shipped in standard containers, transported by truck or air, and assembled in a matter of hours. Solutions like IKEA's Better Shelter, the one you can see in the top left corner, are used globally, featuring built-in solar lighting and lockable doors. Others use origami principles to fold open into weatherproof structures. These are scalable systems for real-world complexity, but of course, they are not perfect solutions. Smart technology, a topic that we've been touching on this morning. So even in disaster zones, people need to stay connected for health, safety, and most importantly, hope. Many modern shelters now include smart features like solar lighting for safety, sensors that monitor air quality or detect fire, and Wi-Fi hotspots that enable digital learning or remote health check-ins. These features support not just physical survival, but emotional and social well-being. In places where infrastructure has collapsed, tech-enabled shelters can bridge the gap between displacement and recovery. Finally, community-led and adaptable solutions. So engaging affected populations in design and construction is important to meet cultural and social needs. And this may seem like common sense, but a lot of times in emergency situations, this is not the case. Modular systems that can evolve from temporary to semi-permanent or permanent housing is important. And the most successful shelter solutions are those designed with the people they serve. And modular systems allow families to expand their homes as needed, transitioning from emergency shelter to permanent residence. This isn't just architecture, it's also agency, and it's a model of recovery rooted in dignity and not dependency. Finally, shelter is not a solo effort. It takes engineers, architects, doctors, volunteers, and communities working side by side to respond meaningfully to a crisis. And shelter is, again, most effective when they're a part of a whole system. As displacement events grow more complex, shelter response is evolving beyond temporary solutions, focusing on dignity, sustainability, and long-term recovery pathways. I want to end this presentation with the same verse that I started with that reminds us not just of the realities of hardship, but also the strength and mercy found in patience. Again, Allah tells us in Surah Al-Baqarah that we will surely be tested with fear, with hunger, with loss, but He also tells us to give glad tidings to those who remain steadfast and patient. And in every disaster, whether it's an earthquake in Turkey, floods in Pakistan, or fires in California, we see this truth unfold. People lose everything, yet they respond with resilience, with faith and hope. This verse not only acknowledges the reality of hardship, it elevates patience as a source of strength. May Allah enable us to be among those who respond and be present for our communities in moments of need. Jazakallah.